It's round 2 of the Formula One World Championship, and we've come to the hottest venue on the F1 calendar, but also to one of the most challenging and dynamic circuits in the championship. And as you join us here at Sepang, the cars and drivers just leaving the pit lane to form the grid for this Malaysian Grand Prix. And Mark Blundell, as ever here, the pre-race talk is all about the weather and what it might do. We knew it was going to be hot, it certainly is. But what about those rain clouds?
Well, I can tell you, Steve, as we're standing here now, the wind is getting up, the temperature's just dropping, and the clouds, you look around, they're coming in. I think it's a big problem. It could actually come in, you know, thick and fast during the race.
And the race off at 3 o'clock local time here in the afternoon, which is just about the time when the storms come in. So it could be a race of some uncertainty. And after Kimi Raikkonen's 20-second margin of victory in the last round, is it going to be a more competitive race here?
Definitely so. The guys have already been testing at this circuit only a week before the race. A lot of people have made a lot of progress, but Ferrari, McLaren, the strong contenders again. But I think Massa, if he gets out in front, he's going to walk.
Well, it all began 3 weeks ago with that dominant win by Raikkonen in Melbourne ahead of Fernando Alonso, and of course that stunning debut from Britain's Lewis Hamilton, who came third on his very first Formula One drive. But qualifying yesterday here at Sepang promised to tell us a whole lot more about the early season form, and James Allen has the details.
Qualifying here at Sepang is always difficult in the heat, but yesterday it was particularly tough. Everyone had to go with a soft tyre here. It's half a second a lap faster than the hard, but not everybody could get it to hold on for an entire lap. In the first knockout session, we lost Rubens Barrichello, extremely grumpy about the handling of his Honda, and Alex Wurz in the Williams, who was stuck in gear. In the second knockout session, we lost Jenson Button, simply not able to wring a super lap time out of the Honda, and also the 2 Renaults. This team has dominated in Sepang for the last 2 years, but they're not working this year. Into the pole position shootout, the battle was hot between Ferrari and McLaren. Initially, Fernando Alonso looked as though he'd taken a bit of fuel out of the car and was running right at the front in provisional pole position. But right at the end, Felipe Massa snatched it from him. A wonderful lap from the Brazilian. Well, if you look at the margin between himself and his teammate Raikkonen, it's half a second, and that indicates he's carrying a bit less fuel. Nevertheless, I think this afternoon we're going to have a wonderful battle, particularly between the 2 Ferraris, with the McLarens mixing it up as well. Felipe Massa is on pole for the 4th time in the last 7 races. Alonso on the front row as he was in Melbourne. Raikkonen and Hamilton make up row 2. Row 3, Nick Heidfeld in the BMW Sauber and Rosberg in the Williams. Row 4, Kubica out-qualified by his teammate here, and Jarno Trulli, who did a great job in the Toyota. Ralf Schumacher and Mark Webber round out the top 10. The 2 Renaults off the pace here in Sepang. Kovalainen ahead of Fisichella. Coulthard and Sato in the Super Aguri on row 7. Row 8, Jenson Button very unhappy here in Sepang, and Liuzzi in the Toro Rosso. Scott Speed and Anthony Davidson make up row 9. Row 10, Alex Wurz was stuck in gear in the first part of qualifying, and Christian Albers in the Spiker. And finally, Adrian Sutil and Rubens Barrichello, who had to drop to the back of the grid because he's changed his engine.
Everything was great, everything works well. I managed to put everything together on the lap, so I'm really happy.
It's true that after for Q1 and Q2 to be first, you know, you expect to be in pole position as well, but there is always one Ferrari coming at the end of the session. But you know, it's okay, and tomorrow we should have a more competitive race that we had in Australia. That, you know, Ferrari was a little bit too quick.
I'm still not 100% happy with the car in one lap. So even in Australia we were in pole position, but still I wasn't happy with it. So we're still looking for it, and I think so 3rd place is okay here first time.
As soon as you try and push that a little bit more with this car, you overheat the tyres, and that's really the problem. I was never going to go 3/10 quicker, which would have taken me up 2 places. So, you know, I think we should be not happy, but I think we've got the maximum out of the car in qualifying, which is all we can do at the moment. And we've got to work on our race pace. I think our race pace is a bit better than quali, but not a lot.
Fortunately, I had testing here last week, and I was able to learn the circuit. It's not an easy circuit at all. You know, it's really quick, a lot of high-speed corners. G-force through a couple of the corners is pretty high, and you know, you've got to try and take it flat while holding their neck up, and it is tough, but you know, I'm fit enough, which is a positive thing. And but the race is going to be hard. You know, 58 laps around here or 56 laps around here.
You're very careful about protecting yourself in the immediate race build-up. It's something that you enjoyed in GP2. The Formula One experience makes different demands.
Yeah.
How important and how deliberate a decision is that?
I think, well, just preparation is everything, you know. And I think when you get to the Formula One world, in which I'm still learning, you know, I'm still not used to it. It's so different to anything I've experienced before. But you know, you have all these different demands, people pulling you here and there. But at the end of the day, you need to be able to calm yourself down in a short space of time, and then get yourself out there to drive as quick as you've ever driven before, and try to win the race.
There's huge confidence within the team now, isn't there? And the relationship and the partnership it really is between yourself and Fernando is good and strong. But has it changed just a little after he saw what you did in Melbourne? Is there an extra respect there?
I don't know if there's extra respect there. I think we've always had respect for each other. I think he knew in testing that I was quick, but probably didn't expect me to be as quick in the race. And definitely probably was surprised by me all of a sudden cutting in front of him in the race. But at the end of the day, he finished in front of me, which definitely made him happy. But we come here, we're still competing for the team and as a team, but wanting to win. Both of us want to win. He's extremely quick. He knows the track. I'm only just behind him on the grid, like I was in Melbourne, and I want a different fuel strategy to him. So you could say I'm in a better position than him. But it's all about seeing an opportunity and seizing it. And I think in this business, and when you're in the car, it's a split-second decision. You know, you either take it or you don't. And sometimes you just miss it because you're just too slow at reacting to it. And I think, you know, there'll be times this year where it doesn't turn out well, and I'm sure it won't go as well, but I have to try and limit the risks and the mistakes, and do the best job I can.
Well, it's a cautious confidence from Lewis Hamilton, who starts on row 2, but there are frustrations for the current world champions Renault, and especially for Honda, whose difficulties in Australia seem to have got worse here in Malaysia. Louise Goodman and Ted Kravitz bring us up to date.
Still no better than it was in Australia, the evil-handling Honda is now catching the attention of the viewing public.
It's always an experience when your mum calls you and says that it looked pretty shocking, the onboard footage, and it was pretty tough. The reason is you try and push that bit harder, and it goes slow with this car. You know, we're on the limit with what we can do.
Not only will Rubens Barrichello be starting from the pit lane, but now operational errors are starting to surface.
The car is bad, and we have to live with that. But if you know, in qualifying in Melbourne, my car was hitting the ground like never before, and then I come here and the car is not set up for myself. Then what can I do? I mean, I'm just being a passenger.
Honda isn't the only team in trouble. Renault dominated here last year. Fisichella took pole and the victory. But now it's a very different story. For the first time since 2002, neither car has qualified in the top 10.
The situation is quite clear. We're not quick enough. We are just struggling with the general grip everywhere. We are miles away compared to Ferrari and McLaren especially. So we cannot fight at all for the victory on the single race, and for that we cannot fight even for the championship.
But new boy Kovalainen is slightly less downcast.
And we are slowly making progress, and everybody's working flat out. And we just gotta believe in ourselves, and I believe in myself, and I believe in the team. So you know, we're not gonna give up, and we're gonna work through this, and we're gonna end up winners one day.
Well, that's the mood up and down this Sepang pit lane. The message from Renault is don't expect too much. The message from Honda is expect absolutely nothing from Jenson Button and Rubens Barrichello this afternoon.
No, I think Honda and Renault are the biggest disappointments so far throughout the weekend. Honda's a little bit more understandable in a way because we knew from race 1 that they were in the doldrums. Renault just seemed to slip back even further, Steve, and I'm just not so sure that the Alonso effect has had a bigger impact than what they realised. I think the guys were used to just putting the tyres on, the fuel in and sending it and coming back with a car on pole position and a world champion. It's no longer happening.
But what we've got here that we didn't have in Australia is 2 Ferraris at the front end of things. Felipe Massa on pole, Kimi Raikkonen on row 2. What problems and possibilities does this pose in terms of team tactics?
I don't think there'd be anything team tactic-wise with Ferrari. I think it's still open policy for, you know, Raikkonen, if he gets out there, it's his race. Massa wants to be his race for sure for the World Championship situation. But if McLaren get in front of those guys, that could really put it into a little bit of a situation for them. I'd be a little bit more wary about the BMWs. They were fast starting in Melbourne, and it could happen again.
But Lewis Hamilton will give it absolutely everything, but he rather knows his place at the moment within the McLaren lineup.
Well, you know, the big problem for Lewis is if he tries to do a start like he did in Melbourne, because he actually had a little bit of a bad start off the line, and then he went round the outside of some guys. If he does that here, he's going to get himself in a lot of trouble. You get a lot of cars running up inside, going wide, and they'll catch him off.
Yes, he is concerned about the first corner here, and it does pose problems, and that first corner is only about 10 or 15 minutes away now. We'll be out on the grid with Martin Brundle very shortly, but Formula One is preparing itself for back-to-back races. This Malaysian Grand Prix is followed by Bahrain next weekend. And then the European season, that gets underway in the second week of May with the Spanish Grand Prix. And you could be with us out in Barcelona by entering our ITV F1 competition.
We've got a great competition for you thanks to AT&T Williams sponsor the Royal Bank of Scotland. It's a trip for two to the Spanish Grand Prix on the 13th of May. You'll have 2 weekend tickets to the race with seats in the heart of the action in the main stand. 3 nights accommodation at the 4-star Hotel Colón in the centre of Barcelona, return flights and all your transfers included. 3 times Formula One World Champion and RBS Global Ambassador Sir Jackie Stewart will also give you a tour of the AT&T Williams garage. And here is Sir Jackie with the question.
To be in with a chance of winning this great prize, courtesy of RBS, just answer this simple question. Who was the last driver to win the World Championship for Williams? A. Michael Schumacher, B. Mika Häkkinen, or C. Jacques Villeneuve?
So that's A. Schumacher, B. Häkkinen or C. Villeneuve. The number to call is 0901 293 2020, or you can text F1 plus your answer, A, B or C, to 63337. Calls cost £1 per entry from a BT landline. Calls from other networks and mobiles may vary. Texts cost £1 plus the standard network rate. Lines are now open and will close just before midnight this Thursday, the 12th of April. Entrants must be 18 or over. Details of this competition, including terms and conditions, can be found on the ITV F1 website.
And there's plenty more background and news and information on that ITV F1 website, but in a few minutes we'll be getting a lot more information on what lies in store in this Malaysian Grand Prix from Martin Brundle out on the grid. Join us back here at Sepang in just a moment. Well, it's the most grueling test of the Formula One season for spectators and also for both car and driver. But it also has the potential to be an outstanding race in marvellous surroundings here at this new Sepang circuit, which is hosting the Malaysian Grand Prix for the 9th time. That amazing double-sided grandstand with the hibiscus flower roof. And it's a terrific spectator circuit, and they're in for quite a spectacle this afternoon in the heat of Sepang. Mid-30s temperature, mid-50s the track temperature out there, and for the likes of Jenson Button and everyone else around that grid, how do they keep cool, Mark?
This is going to be a grueling race for these guys. They've probably taken on between 8 or so litres of fluid to get hydrated before the race. They're going to be losing some 3 kilos in body weight after this event's taken place, and they've got about 600 millilitres of fluid in the car, and normally they take all of that.
Okay, well, there's still activity for Honda in the garage there, and so many question marks about how they're going to perform during this weekend and indeed during the races to come. But right now we can go down onto that grid with Martin Brundle.
Happy Easter, everybody. It's not just the ambient temperature, it's the humidity and the fact that the track is 55, as Steve was just saying. It's like a radiator, just the heat's just boiling off it, and I'm sure the drivers will be pleased when they actually get going. You get a little bit of fresh air coming through the car, and finally you actually cool down because you're a bit sweaty. There's going to be some interesting tyre choices going on. I'd love to just take the cover off that Ferrari if they weren't going to disassemble me limb by limb and see what they've got on there, because it rained for 4 hours overnight and the track has been quite heavily washed. They're expecting it to be quite green. So maybe they'll go for the harder tyre. I think it could be quite critical today. If they go for the softer one, they might be sliding around and just degrading the tyre. If you're in the midfield, you certainly should take the more durable option, because you're not going to be that fast anyway in the traffic. I'm going to try and get hold of Felipe Massa if I can, but he's kind of surrounded here by the whole crew having last-minute debriefs, and it's quite intense debrief as well. So something is going on. We're going to dive in there in a minute. It doesn't look quite right at the moment, but I may go and try and find Raikkonen if he's back on the grid. He just wandered off a little while ago. So did Fernando Alonso. Raikkonen's not on. Okay, let's try for Nico Rosberg then. Follow me, Matt. I'm going to go this way and just see if we can get a feel for what's going on the grid and what the drivers might be feeling they need to do. He's just down here, and Rosberg is over here in the shade, in the shadow, nowhere near his car. His car's over there, but there's just a little bit of shadow over here from this rather impressive looking grandstand. Nico, we just could do with a quick word really. How's the track conditions?
I have no idea. I just went very slowly on the outlap, so I have no idea.
What, just saving fuel, so you can't just give it a push, because it rained heavily overnight?
Yeah, well, that's the difficult thing when you're saving fuel. You don't know how the track conditions are. So I'm relying on my teammate, really. He gave me good information about how the car was, so I can adapt my front wing to that. So I hope it's right.
So because he's outside the top 10, he could put more fuel in, so he can give it one on the lap to the grid and give you some information.
Yep, that's the way it is.
And you've got to believe him and trust him. So what, you're just tuning the front wing on the ambient temperatures and that sort of thing?
Gotta go. Yeah, that's what you do, yeah.
Good luck. Let's... we got Kubica here. Let's have a quick word with him. We're live at the moment, chap. Are you live? I don't think you are. He's live, talking to his engineer. Robert, how's it feeling out there? Could you get a chance to feel the track on the way around?
No, we just cruise to the grid, just to, don't burn too much fuel, and we will see conditions on the first lap of the race.
So you're going to go on the hard tyres then, and surely because the track's changed so much, you're going to take a gamble?
We'll see. I think we'll start with soft ones.
You start with the soft ones? Okay, good stuff. Well, we'll see how that goes. Lewis Hamilton's by his car, but he specifically asked us not to bother him on the grid. So again, we're going to have to respect that. Hopefully he'll feel more comfortable as time goes past. And he's just here putting his balaclava, and his skid lid is about to go on. We'll just get a quick glance there. But he's saying that I need to be in the zone before the start of a Grand Prix. And good luck, Lewis. We'll catch him another time. I hope we definitely get to see him when he's on pole position and get a quick chat. Where is Fernando Alonso? Has he made it back to the grid? I don't think so. The drivers, incredibly, some drivers are not even here on the grid. That's absolutely amazing. Let's have one more go then with Felipe Massa, and then we've got to get out of here. It's a long walk to the commentary box. Felipe, quick word. Congratulations, 5th pole position. You started at the back last time, the first this time. It's going to be quite a different race for you.
Oh, you're giving me already the congratulations for the next pole position, because I did just 4.
Okay, I've got 5 in my statistics, but okay, take the next one as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so what's the strategy for you? I mean, Jean, can he race his teammate? Raikkonen leads the World Championship. Are you allowed to beat your teammate today?
Well, we're working for the team.
You are allowed to make good question as well.
I'm allowed to make good question, that's right.
It's more difficult than for him to make the race.
Okay, well, I'll come and ask you, Jean. All right, well, look, good luck in the race, and congratulations again.
Thank you.
Okay, it's back to you, Steve.
Well done, Martin. And of course, Mark, that is the fundamental question for Ferrari, isn't it? And tactics are going to play a big part, because it's Ferrari against McLaren. First 4 places on the grid there. Fernando Alonso, who's on the front row for the 2nd consecutive race, but no Ross Brawn on the pit wall for Ferrari, reading and dictating tactics. Luca Baldessario's got that responsibility. What might Ferrari be lacking in that area now?
Well, if you look at the first race that we had in the championship, there seemed to be nothing lacking, although I do feel that over the course of time they may get into situations where they miss the likes of Ross Brawn. He was a fundamental key player in the Ferrari team. I don't think there's any situation with team tactics between Massa and Raikkonen at this point. Obviously Ferrari as well, they have to think about the Constructors' Championship, Steve. They want both cars to be competitive at all times.
What about tyre choice? We have got one single tyre manufacturer now, but how do you read, say, the choice of Robert Kubica going on soft tyres from row 4?
Well, you know, it's difficult to understand in some ways because it really depends on the circuit and whether it's been too green, and if they get a soft tyre and it starts to grain, it could be a problem for him.
Okay, let's hear swiftly from David Coulthard with Louise.
It's seriously hot down here. David's helmet's just coming out of the ice box. Are you able to forget the heat once the cars get going?
You've got no choice. This is what makes you feel like a Grand Prix driver when you have difficult conditions. So we've just got to get on with it. For once, we're going to be able to see which tyres guys are running today because of these new stripes around them. What pattern are you expecting to see? Because you're going to have to run both, aren't you? Yeah, I think that it's going to be a little bit split. Like in Australia, it was a bit more clear, but I think here it will be split. One tyre's clearly quicker, but has higher deg.
Thanks, David.
So Felipe Massa on pole position for this Malaysian Grand Prix, but for drivers like Lewis Hamilton who have never really experienced race distance in these conditions, what kind of grueling afternoon are they in for?
Well, he's going to be in for a tough weekend, but don't forget the situation. These big teams have got simulators, Steve. He would have already run race distances and they would have heated up the room, put a lot of temperature in there just so he can try and simulate what he's going to be doing in a cockpit now. But at the end of the day, it still doesn't factor in what really goes on inside the cockpit of a Formula One car during a Grand Prix distance.
And Lewis Hamilton, we were talking to him yesterday, and he was quite neurotic about taking in the right level of fluids and getting rid of the right level of fluids as well.
Yeah, you know what he was telling me earlier as well is the fact that they understand what went on during the first race. They take on board how much weight he lost, and then they compensate with taking on a certain amount of fluid. It's scientific stuff. It never was with me 10 years ago, but things are pretty different now.
Charlie Whiting there and race organisers. The threat of rain, the possibility of thunderstorms must be in their minds as well. New rules concerning the pace car coming out. It could get very complicated. It could get very dramatic indeed. But the final preparations have been made. The drivers who have been trying to keep cool, trying to keep their fluid levels up, must now face the searing heat of this Malaysian Grand Prix, plus the concentration and the total commitment that this Sepang circuit demands. And we'll be back with the final countdown to the start in just a couple of minutes' time.